All right, it's 9:30. I'd like to call the Brad Channel District 15 Project 175 hearing. This is a continuation of the prior hearing. Today we do have about 4 or 5 letters in our packet. I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to look at that. And if everybody wants a minute to read that, there is a few. We won't be reading them all out today. And Ken, I understand you've got a letter in there as well?
Yeah,
Okay. That's been recognized as well.
thank you.
Okay. I think at this time, Nate, will be prepared to go through the process of the new findings.
Well, I don't really have much prepared for
If I could just interrupt, just for the record, I'd like to note that Ken Kubetsky is appearing by telephone. And Ken, if there's any part of the proceedings that you're unable to hear, just interrupt us and we'll try to reposition the phone.
Okay, thank you.
And also there were some letters that were submitted to the board. Every board member has a copy of the letters and they're part of the record. And I believe they're in everybody's packet and they've been handed out to every member of the audience. Ken, is there any request by you to read the letters into the record?
No, I think as long as they're made part of the record, unless there's some members that have not read, I don't think you have to take the time to do that. But that's up to the board.
Yeah. And everybody has the letters there as part of the packet. If anybody wants additional time to review those, we could do that now.
Is there an additional handout that came today?
Yeah, they're on the table. The letters start on the 3rd page of the handout, just for the record.
Will they all be made part of the file so that I could have the opportunity later to access that file and read it while I'm
Absolutely, and I'll even scan them and send them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody had an opportunity to review the letters?
Let me ask a question. Does the packet also include the estimated benefits for the 3 proposals and also the hydrology and the cost of benefit aerials or the topography that shows the various cost benefits for acre on the color coded map?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Nate?
Okay, at the last hearing, I presented an addendum to the detailed survey report that essentially had a new alternative, what we're calling the 5-year ditch and a cost estimate, with some possible areas for further cost reduction. Since that last hearing, and then this is a continuation of that, there really hasn't been any additional engineering work. There has been some additional viewing, which I believe Jerry is going to present some minor modifications. We did meet with a small group of petitioners to discuss really some of the final fine-tuning of the engineering, and as I stated, there are opportunities for cost reduction to either the 5 or 10-year ditch, but I haven't really put it into detail yet because of the kind of the unknowns of whether the project is proceeding or not. But I don't have anything specific to present today, other than what I will support the viewers on what they have to say.
Okay. Roger, do you have any additions that you'd like to add to this as far as the different from the last time where we discussed the different benefit areas and so on?
We took our instructions from the board and we went out and did the redetermination of the benefits. and Jerry has the presentation ready to go.
Okay.
I think we went through some of these at the last meeting, but I'll just kind of run through quick, because we have some additional recommendations. Some were part of the original, but I'll just remind folks that we did bring up the fact that on County Ditch number 2, that we do have some overlap in benefits, so that if this improvement, new ditch goes into effect, that there should be some discussions on looking at getting done on County Ditch number 2 redetermined. At the first hearing, we talked about areas that have been restored to the wetlands that didn't show up on the NWI maps. So part of the recommendation was in section 7, we've got 71 acres that currently now has been put into a wetland bank for wetland restoration. We recommend that the benefits be taken off that parcel and reflected in the report. We did have an area where the watershed district had done a project. Some of this land is currently not farmed, so it was originally included in the report at the ag rate of $4,100. So we're recommending that adjustment be made to show the value at $3,000 for the non-ag land. We did have another parcel, section 23, that also had a wetland restoration that was done, wasn't included in the NWI, so we're recommending it to deduct the 102.6 acres for the wetland restoration. Talked a little bit from hearings, there was input from landowners about some changes that they made to properties. When we originally developed benefits, we used this table basically that looked at the system basically improving from a 2-year to a 10-year design. The original benefits then as determined came out like this. Since the hearing, we went back, took a look at the engineer's report, and then the final report, which adjusted the change in capacity by reach. And this table is showing that, but it kind of shows up on the ground like this. The areas that are in the red, those we're going to have, some of them quite a dramatic change from 50 to 80% increase in capacity. So what we did, and that kind of followed through with some of the input that we got at the hearing too from some landowners, and there's a reason we went back and looked at it. So based on that, we went back and applied some of that into the calculation to include those areas that were going to actually receive an increased capacity. So the changes, I don't know if you've got a little pointer, you can see mine there. Changes that we did make and are recommending is in that top area, the 225, and that was based on comments at the hearing that some of that property also has an outlet to the north. So what we normally would do on that is split the benefit between the two systems. So that's the reason for the reduction for that particular area. The blue would be remain pretty much the same. We did have an area that would be up in here that actually increased because of the increased capacity. That would be the 750 along the lower red reach there.
You got a point you can draw there.
Is there?
Yeah. It should be a silver.
This one?
No, silver.
That's our opinion.
I don't know. Okay. This area basically pretty much the same, but there was an area in here that from the originals did increase because of that increased capacity. We did set our boundary based on the original benefits or improvements on County Ditch 2. The lines were drawn here pretty much where those benefit levels changed. There was about a 50% reduction in benefits as you got to the south here. So we did account for that in this green. We dropped some of that value down, or this actually went up $50 because of the drop in benefits from Ditch 2. Here's an area that got reduced because this basically we felt was similar to the area along Ditch 2 because of the private improvements. And we did set a boundary here based on contour elevation and proximity to the ditch. and adjusted that for additional costs for the improvements to get the drainage benefit, as well as up here in this area, which is brought up at the hearing. So basically, this is our recommended change from the original benefits in the direct benefit. So I think everybody has this handout. What we did is with the adjusted values, we went back and adjusted the report, came up with revised benefit total, which is $5,511,146. We've got an estimated engineering cost, so the project cost would be roughly 35.09% of the benefits. And based on these revised numbers, the 750, the 20-year cost per acre would be $1,316. $600 properties would be at $1,053, and the 550 at $965. And those properties that were set at 400 now would be at 702. And basically, Nate came up with a cost for the 5-year design ditch, and that would be $1,410,107.55. We looked at a 20% reduction of benefits across the board if we went to the 5-year design ditch, and those benefits then came out to $4,207,933.59. So 33.51% of the benefits would be the cost per property or per benefit. So for the adjusted benefit values, $600 came out $1005, $480 at $804 an acre, $440 benefit properties would be at $7.37 an acre, and the $320 at $5.36 an acre based on the 20-year amortization. That also included the assumed $200,000 flood damage reduction amount that the Red Lake Watershed District would include. And these kind of fall right across the board. So if you were at 750 at the 5-year, you would be at 600. So
the 200,000 flood damage reduction would be the same for either project? If you went with the 5-year versus the 10-year, we still would get the 200,000 flood damage reduction? Or is it just on the 10-year?
that would be the board. I'm not sure. I think I couldn't tell you. The board can't tell you what they would do.
Can you speak up a little bit more? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
The question I had was, if we go with a 5-year, do we lose the $200,000 that we get from the flood damage reduction funding?
No,
We don't.
no.
So that stays on both projects?
That would stay in the 5 or 10 year.
Okay.
And if I'm correct in looking at that, it says assumed flood damage reduction funding, and that's assumed on both models, correct? So the dollar amounts that are presented already are assuming the 200,000. Okay.
Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah.
So basically, between a 10-year and a 5-year, you're not looking at a heck of a lot of cost reduction. You know, going from a 35.9 to a 33.51, and you're getting double the capacity. Why would we even look at a 5-year?
Can you state your name for the record?
Yeah, I'm a Kodetsky too.
Okay.
I'm Robert. I'm Robert.
Okay, good. We
Okay.
want to know that for them.
Yeah. I happen to fall into the $600 benefit versus $480. You're looking at $10.53 an acre versus $8.04 an acre, but I'm getting double the capacity. It's for 20 years. Will I live 20 years? I don't know, but it's sure will improve the value of the land. Are we going to vote on that today? Are we going to settle this today and start?
Well, we'll open this up for discussion to the public, and then we'll have board discussion, public discussion, any questions for the engineer or the viewers, then the public will have their input, and then we'll come back to the board. If the board feels comfortable with the decisions that are information are here today, they can or cannot, they can look for more information, or they can vote on this today, so. I can't answer that until we're completed here today.
Okay.
I have one question, if I may.
Yeah.
Did the viewers get a chance to take a look at Steve Goodwin's letter in regard to the tiling, and has that been included?
We originally had recommended cutting that, but we took that out of slide.
Okay, so that has been addressed.
Anything else, Gary? Okay. Board discussion, is there anything for me? Board, Jerry, Rod, that would like to add?
One thing, I guess.
Okay.
Jerry, you want us to go back to where your slide shows the benefits? And this was just a landowner that's not going to be here today. He also has a letter in the packet. It reflects section 32. There was a reduction given to this ditch project right here based on hydraulics. This gentleman, all of his water, this is a ridge here. His water comes into this same system. So all he asks is that the board consider, or the viewers consider, putting his rate at the same as this rate. He helped pay for this ditch. His water drains to this ditch. Just wanted consideration from the viewers and the board on the northwest quarter of section 32.
Has that been looked into or no? I mean, we can keep going on and on, but if somebody wants more consideration, I would think we've had enough here.
Yeah, I just wanted this, you just asked me.
And it comes to a point where it can just, how much more people? Anything from the board? Any questions?
We basically just have the two options, the one in the yellow, that's not applicable anymore.
No, this would be the one today would be presented at the hearing on 725 today in 10 year. And then the 5 year design.
The difference, Leroy, is that the 200,000 wasn't incorporated into that first hearing. So this is new information based on the previous hearings.
I'm going to open this up to the public for any questions.
Yeah, I just want to, since I have not figured to see what you're showing on the slide and so forth, let me just, in my mind, go through the alternative between the two, between the 5 and the 10 year. I got looking at this engineering estimate chart, and the big differences between the two is the difference in excavation, that is from 237,000 plus 118,000 cubic yards for a savings of about 338,000. Then everything else is the same, except when you get down to the land acquisition, which is instead of 62 acres, 49 acres, and the relocation of the utilities is half on the 5 year versus the 10. And then the engineering costs or contingencies drop from 128,000 to 35,000. So are those the big dollar differences? Have I got that right?
Yes, Ken, you do have it right. I will comment though, in your letter you suggest that none of the culverts will change. And for the 5 year design, there will be some minor reductions in culvert costs. However, those are not specifically in that cost estimate because we didn't really have the budget to completely re-engineer the 5 year. So there will be some changes in the culverts, but not a significant dollar number reduction.
Okay.
Any questions from the public? Gary?
Gary Polkovec. You're talking about capacity. I don't know how many years ago, you have re-looked at the capacity of the ditch that are there. Have you looked at the culverts that are there? Really? You go to Kingfront, I got section 5. The water comes in barely on one side, on the east side. And it goes up the other side, it can't get out. It's got to go across my field. And goes across the road, the dirt road. Okay, that's one instance I watched. I go to now to section 26, 25, 25. It comes across Bill's there, the straight ditch line. It gets to the corner. It can't go through them culverts. Up in the corner there. Yeah, further up. Yeah, right up in the corner. It can't get through there, so what does it do? It backs up and goes across Bill's yard, goes just about over the highway, it goes through under the culverts, through under the highway, and over to the field. Your capacity of the ditch is plenty. You're gonna straighten out some things, clean up some stuff for a couple $1 million. And your capacity doesn't change, it's still gonna go to the field. So I'm saying, where are you gaining the more capacity? Are you gonna guarantee us this water's gonna stay in that ditch for everybody? Where am I gonna benefit from it? Where am I benefiting from it? I spent a lot of money and a lot of love and hardship doing that little 1 mile with a D6. I didn't spend days, I spent years doing it. It took a long time because that cat doesn't do much. And now we got a board, we got all these people, all these farmers together, and we got improvements we have to drain, we have to do this stuff. You want to put more water through. The ditches that are there are probably need to be worked on. But the capacity can't change without the culverts being completely changed. You have to, going into 2 in that corner, you would have to put 1 more in there. And when you do that, you're going to next mile down, you're going to put another one. And you do that, you're going to next mile, you're going to put down 2 more. You just got to keep going bigger all the time. Your capacity ain't changing anything.
Nate, that would be one for you. Just for the record, Gary, you are a petitioner, correct?
Yeah, I'm a petitioner, I made it, I should have.
Nate, you agree?
Well, he raises a lot of questions, but this proposed project isn't going to eliminate the big floods and the large-scale water damage that is often seen in this region, especially when snow and ice are involved. Those spring type of situations that you are describing are probably still going to occur because the ditch is full of snow or the culverts are blocked. What it will do is it will take an entire system that currently has issues, according to the petitioners, and give it a hydrologic design such that it will not flood except maybe once every 10 years or less. In other words, it's going to have the type of design where it can take a 3.5 to 3.7 inch rainfall fall across the entire watershed and move that water and transport it during the growing season, keeping the water off the crops. That it will do with the existing culverts. There are modifications to the pipes I will add. It's not without culvert additions and improvements and enhancements, especially lowering. So the system itself as a whole will function. It will also provide a very, very adequate outlet for the impoundment. That's as advertised and that's what's proposed.
Nate, under ditch, or County Road 20, which is right here, is there a culvert being jacked under this highway? Is there any need for any hydraulic change in culverts under this road?
You know, I have to get out the stationing and the profile to give you the specific locations of what's being changed for every pipe.
I'll get your plan so that you can have that.
But I believe there's one jack there.
Yeah, excuse me, Gary, that water comes out on in the middle of the section from Kavetsky's. It does not want to go the direction it wants to go. It wants to come back for some reason. If Donnie was here, he'd tell you. It wants to come back to the south, then it wants to go to the west, and then it wants to go back to the north. It's got a stupid idea there, but that's the way the water likes to go. I've farmed it all my life, I know. I don't know, you took the cattails out and you made us a ditch only about 5 feet, 5, 6 feet wide, and you never finished your job, but it's deep in the middle and nothing on the sides, so you can't get in anymore.
Can I ask you a question?
Might as well. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Gary mentioned a particular culvert that apparently is undersized. What station is that at? And if you look at the culvert schedule on page 20 of your governor's report, is that, can you identify which one that is? Because there are some additions, and there are some that are fairly good sized additions. So do you know what station
that's one of them I'm talking about.
Okay, well, that actually is an instance where there is not an additional culvert proposed at 20. At the north-south paved road, there are two substantially large concrete arches in place. And so that is an instance where we're basically on grade with the existing ditch by that time in the system. There is not a pipe added there, but basically everywhere else, there are pipes being added.
So at some of the stations, for the record,
That's 206.
206, no 206, no culvert changes are being proposed.
All right, but there's a pretty good sized drainage structure in there right now.
Well, there is, but the other thing that's going on, there's going to be berms now. There's engineered spoil berms along the system.
Yeah.
That in that specific reach that Gary's talking about, the ditch is actually designed at a 4-to-1 because we didn't quite have the capacity we needed.
Okay.
And that's going to give us more dirt to build essentially a berm right at that corner to keep the water in the ditch.
There's a 4-to-1 here.
Yeah.
There's in the northwest corner of section 25, there's going to be a 4-to-1 slope designed to give it more capacity. Stay within
That
this.
makes sense, because the culvert design, section 206 has got more water opening than almost all of them except the one at the very beginning.
Them culverts run plumb full and they go full. Then you go 1 mile to the west there and you got an arch culvert for one. It's probably a 10-footer. And that underwater by a foot or more.
This
A
one.
mile down. And you're gonna push more water against that. I don't know where stuff comes through there.
How much waterway area is that section number 22, 23, 26, and 27?
There's with the culverts that we will be adding as we move downstream, they're all about 130 square feet.
So that's 130 square. Is that pretty similar to this?
Yeah, it's 132 right at County Road 20.
Okay. So in your opinion, the hydraulic capacity is adequate for a 10-year design?
Yes, and the system, it's not just one culvert that controls, it functions as an entire system based on channel size and the slope of the land, channel roughness. I mean, any one particular structure doesn't make or break, it's the whole system functions as a system. And it's so flat that water just basically is, as it moves, it's just head pressure that's pushing it.
So what you've really done is just increase the velocity of the water, is what's really going on here? Or not?
Well, in some ways, the drainage improvement is we've lowered the grade for a majority of the ditch, so you have, and we've widened the ditch, so you have a deeper, wider ditch, so instead of water flooding out of the fields, it's in the ditch now. And it will move more efficiently with the additional culverts. It will move through the system. In some minor cases, it may actually raise the water surface elevation at a particular culvert, but it would be contained within the ditch, like in the case of County Road 20.
And that's the whole goal.
Right, it's flooding in the ditch, not on the landscape.
Since I redid the ditch, it comes over the top of that ditch to the south, very, very little. It has head pressure all at once. It goes to the north towards Dales, and the water don't come out of that ditch there. It comes out on Quebecans. They're flat. And there, that's where it comes out. Well, higher, little higher.
Higher up. There you go.
Right,
Right there.
It comes out there.
Yep.
It goes both ways up to Tony's, or from Dale's, this way around the other way. Whatever gets into that ditch stays in there. There's a very, maybe 25 feet that runs maybe 2 inches deep across there for a short time. So you've got plenty of head pressure. That culvert, them culverts are underwater. Same as one to the west. You got plenty of water in this culvert.
Hey, comment?
The other thing we're thinking about here is we're thinking back into history pre-impoundment. Well, now we have the Brandt impoundment. So when we talk 10-year design, the ditch is being designed for a 10-year rainfall downstream of the impoundment. Okay, and it will handle that 3.7 inches over 24 hours over the entire drainage area downstream of the impoundment. Upstream of the impoundment, we conservatively assume 100 cubic feet per second coming out of the impoundment at the same time, when in reality, the impoundment is closing off, or will close off in the future, almost all of that water. So a lot of our historical memory here is remembering how the system functions before the impoundment was built. Now that the impoundment is built, we've wiped out a significant area of drainage area that will no longer be a flooding problem, and now we'll have an outlet if the project proceeds. So it should be a win-win for all interests.
Any other comments?
I'm Gail Kokovic, and where Gary talks about his section, and then farther down the line, I got a half a mile. And it's not that we did such a good job or are that smart, but our ditch, I don't think they have to do much with, regardless, 5 or 10 years. But I don't think we're getting a fair break. We straightened it 10, 12 years ago.
And he's referring to section 32, I believe?
32, yeah, would be
That's
north
what I
of the
discussed
Sherritt
earlier.
Road. Okay, yeah, there. And it's never run over the sides there, and I know it's never.
Sure. My name is Don Strickler, and I have farmed within 2 miles of Highway 75 for approximately 45 years. I represent 2 of the original petitioners, and I represent 8 total landowners. And I agree with the impoundment was a good overall drainage problem solver. And I feel that the channel with slight improvements is very adequate. If there has to be a decision between the 5 and the 10 year, all the people I represent feel with the improvements that we as the operators of the land have improved section 9 and 10, that it's 5 years very adequate.
Even though the cost is very much.
The cost, it's very adequate to handle the present water the way it is. The difference is minuscule between 35 and 33.
Yeah.
For the cost benefit, we live right along the Cooley. For those of us that the highest, we're going to be assessed the highest amount.
Right.
For 2% difference, for a 2% difference for a cost benefit, I can't see the additional money for 2%. Well, 33 to 35 is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's very adequate the way it is, with slight improvements.
I'm Jim Kadetsky, I represent Morris Kadetsky, and I don't you think if you're spending $4 or $5 million here, that and it's only a 2% difference, that the benefits are just from a 10 year to 5 year? I mean, it's like a no-brainer.
It depends on how much land you have involved.
Well, I understand that, but still, that's got to increase the value of that land too, though.
The values, what affects the value the most is if you read the commodity markets the last week or so, that's going to affect the land values more than anything else.
Yeah.
More than drainage, yes. And it's very important to have good drainage. But there's other things that affect the value of land, believe me.
So what you're saying though is if you, let's say we have a 10-year flood and we have a 5-year ditch, now what are you going to have? Now what's going to happen? What are you going to lose in commodities then?
Well, I think the land that's going to be flooded in between the 5 and the 10 year, it's going to flood anyway because the ditch is not going to handle it. Even the 10 year, you're still going to have land that's flooded.
Nate, what kind of rainfall event will a 10-year hold?
About 2.5 to 2.7.
A 10-year?
You said, that's 3.5 to 3.7.
And then, so a 5-year is 2.5, you said?
Right, and then what amounts to that is, if you have a 2.5-inch rain, that's about a 5-year rain. Not all that runs off.
Right.
Okay. But when you have the 10-year, then all that will run off for the 5 years is going to run off, plus that entire inch. So you're really talking about another inch of runoff between the 5 and the 10. And I've heard it stated that it's about double the capacity, which is about true. Instead of your fields and flooding every 2 to 5, it'll flood every 10 instead or less.
And then we all know that it depends on the maturity of the crop. Because we're talking more crop season than we have to agree with that. Most of the situations that we're here to talk about today is when the crops are out in the field. Spring, sometimes you know it's really, sometimes you don't care whether your field floods or not. And then also determine, a lot of your crop use. There's so many variables in runoff, so I just wanted to just give the inches, rain that is a 10 and a 5.
Any other questions from the?
Just one thing to think about, if we did a 5-year plan and found out it wasn't adequate, and then wanted to improve it to the 10-year plan afterwards, it would cost almost as much as it does right now.
Good point. That's a very, very good point. I mean, I understand, if you have a lot of land alongside that ditch, it's definitely going to cost you more than somebody that's further back away. But the benefits, I mean, I don't even see any argument there. It's like buying a car with power windows or cranks. Yeah, you can do cranks. Who buys a car now without power windows?
I go back to the capacity, you can build a 3 times capacity or more. If you can't let it through your roads and culverts, you haven't gained anything, it just piles up. And you take a 3-inch rain, you take a 3-inch rain, I lived there my whole life, that ditch is full. And don't tell me 5 year or 10 year, that happens pretty much every year. It goes up. So it goes up right to the top of the ridge. Top of the culverts, it's up there like 2 or 3 days, it runs down.
Well, that's what I hope we paid all this money to the engineers to. I mean, that's their job, is to tell us what that ditch is supposed to perform. I know you farmed it all your life and understand the water situation, but we've paid the engineers all this money, and hopefully they've got that figured out.
They don't see it, they go by what's in the book, and it tells them the really the truth. But they don't see what the water really does in nature, how it really happens. Because when you have a rainfall 2 miles away at 5 inches, and I get nothing, that ditch still comes full.
But I disagree with you, because I think that most of these engineers that do the work, I worked with a lot more over the years, and they were engineering quite a bit.
You know, it's in their books how
They should have it covered.
Well, is there any other public?
I'd just like to make one more last comment. That is, the difference between the 5 and the 10. I think one has to look at the bottom line cost. In 20 years, do you believe that your land will be worth $3 more per acre because of the better ditch, or is it only down to $1.66? Or would you think it's not worth that $3 a year for 20 years or $60? My question is the investment of the money? I can't believe that we could worry about $60 over 20 years, that our land won't be worth more than that if we put the more efficient ditch in.
I think the biggest thing is if you lose one crop within that 10-year period, you more than paid for your 10-year versus your 5-year, and then some. Not talking about spring runoff, but talking about a heavy rain.
Heavy rain, you will lose it down. Pretty good.
Well, the engineers are
Anything
telling
was
us,
never a 10.
Even at a 10.
well, the engineers are telling us something different.
Any other final public? Otherwise, I'm going to close it off to the public and turn it over to the board for their discussion and their wishes of what they'd like to do. Okay? Okay.
If we find that there is a choke point, like they're worried about, we could upgrade the culverts later, or we can't, or?
It would have to be an improvement project at that point.
Okay.
And you'd have to go essentially through the hearing, petition proceedings, hearing proceedings.
The board's hope is that the engineer's recommendations are adequate and consistent on a 10-year design that is presented at this hearing. All the culverts at this hearing proposed in this plan are part of the hearing.
That's how you correct it.
Lee?
After listening to all of the discussion and looking at the cost and reading Mr. Kovetsky's letter, and he points out verbally here today the small difference in cost between the two. It seems to me that going with a 10-year design is the way to go. And it was contrary to some of the folks out there that, but just looking at it from a total benefit and cost basis, I think 10 years is the way to go. I can't have faith in an engineer. Which I do. He's done a good job for us in a lot of other projects we've had. So I would certainly think that 10-year design would be the way to go. Just one man's opinion.
No.
Just, for the board's consideration, after the final hearing and after getting reports and the commissioner's advisory report or any interested parties, what it comes down to is the decision of the board to either dismiss the proceedings, and the board must dismiss by statute if the benefits are less than the total cost, including any damages that are awarded, or if the proposed project will not be of public utility or benefit, or if it's not practicable after considering the environmental and land use concerns. And on the opposite end, the board shall establish, if they find that the detailed survey report and viewer's report have been correctly made, that the damages and benefits have been properly determined, and that the estimated benefits are greater than the total estimated costs, including damages, and that the proposed project will be a public benefit, utility, and will promote the public health, and that the drainage project as a whole is practicable. And if it is ordered to be established, then it would adopt and contain the findings that have been made and confirm the viewer's report as made or amended, and then establish the project as reported. But exactly the design of that project is kind of based on the engineer's recommendation and the discretion of the board, but the board itself can't just arbitrarily do something. I mean, there should be specific reasons behind it.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Who are you?
Oh, sorry. My name is Delray Sparby. I'm an attorney for the Watershed District.
You're paid by these people?
Correct. And represent the Watershed District.
Okay.
Just the board itself, the entity.
Right.
You're supposed to keep us out of trouble.
There you go.
Any other comment from the board?
I just want to say one thing, that the incident that brought this petition to a head was, I don't know, was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago? And 2 years ago. So, in defense of our engineer, which I don't usually do either, we did see what happens when there's a lot of water out there. And I imagine we were all there, Nate, looking at this situation and so on. So, that, I just wanted to defend that. I'm not going to speak. I'm a landowner, and I pay from we're going to pay from $750 down to whatever the lower one is. And, I'm not going to do a lot of commenting because I have a conflict of interest, and I'm not going to vote.
How much of a difference has the amount of really made with your overland flooding in the spring? Is it a great difference or just a small difference?
I can say something to that as a township supervisor.
I think we think we've had a public, I think this is board decision, board conversation.
And Gene, if you stated that you're abstaining, I would myself prefer that you not engage in board discussion.
Okay.
I kind of agree with Lee's statement, than going for the 10 instead of the 5. That's my opinion.
There's a trend in the last few years for rainfalls to be heavier, storms to be more severe than we've had in the past. And so I think going on the conservative side might not be the best idea here.
Well, what am I hearing here? I mean, is someone willing to do something, or we just go?
I would make a motion to approve findings of the engineer for 10-year design. Go with 10-year design, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Lee to go with the 10-year design
I'll second.
presented at the hearing today.
I'll second.
Second by Leroy.
For clarification purposes, would that include the statutory findings and also approving the viewers report and the engineer's report?
Yeah. Any further discussion from the board?
I guess I had just one comment. I mean, the watershed itself is putting $300,000 in it. I mean, we might as well get it so we can drain the pond down properly, is my opinion.
The only thing is with that, draining of the impoundment, we're not going to be draining the impoundment when they're having all that water out there anyway.
No, of course not.